Right, we're recording, so no swearing, you lot. Okay, best behaviour. And oh, bear with me. Hold on. George is joining us now.
Hello.
Hello, George.
Hello. How are you?
Are you with us?
I am. I've been desperately trying to get in. About the
It's
last.
probably my fault.
I had a problem as well.
There was no link.
My blazer and a pair of shorts with me little stick of Blackpool rock. Along the promenade I stroll. It may be sticky, but I never complain. It's nice to have a nibble at it now and again. Every day, wherever I stray, the kids all round me flock. One afternoon the band conductor up on the stand somehow lost his baton, it flew out of his hand. So I jumped in this place and then conducted the band with me little stick of Blackpool rock. With me little stick of Blackpool rock.
So there we have it, Sue. Do you remember that one?
I do. He's famous for being from Wigan like me, George Formby. I've seen his statue. I've been trying to track down his blue plaque, but I've not found it yet.
Oh, Alban.
Somewhere near where this rugby ground used to be, I think. But
Yeah,
the house isn't there anymore.
Alban, do you know this? George Formby's blue plaque in Blackpool?
Not in Blackpool, in Wigan.
In Wigan.
Oh, in Wigan.
He did live in Lytham, though, didn't he?
I don't know whether it's actually on the school where he went to, the blue
plaque.
So
So,
you like detective books. You need to do some digging. This is my friend George, by the way. We'll do a quick intro. It was George's idea, and him and his wife Julie, who will dip in later. She's probably doing other things, but she usually dips in. We reconnected about 2-3 months ago. We stayed friends, just didn't see each other a lot. And George did a presentation, and we stayed online afterwards. He says, we had a nice chat, and he goes, "How about we do sort of a book club?" So it was George and Julie's idea, and we've done about 5 or 6 now, George, haven't we?
Yeah, something like that since mid-November, I think.
Yeah. So we at the moment we're doing one a week on a Monday. So if you do know other people who've written a book, do send them in our direction, and we'll cobble something together as we do. But we record it, goes out on Facebook, on Beyond Books Media, and on YouTube, so people can get access to it later on. But it's just a nice way of giving an author a little chance to tell us a bit about themselves, what they've done, why they've done it even. Who'd sit down on their own and go, "I'm going to write a book"? What sort of bonkers idea is that? Reading them's fine, but writing them. So tonight's special guest is Susan Brownrigg, who's on your screen down there with very cleverly with her website above her head. And she has written a fantastic book. It's the sort of book I genuinely wish when I was 10, we didn't have books like this. You had to read adult books like Agatha Christie to get an exciting adventure mystery. And there was nothing wrong with Agatha Christie, but they didn't have characters in that were like we were when we were 10, or a little bit older. I think Gracie's touching 40, isn't she? Her brother's about 9 or 10, isn't he? George.
Yeah. George. Another George.
So, what we're going to do is let Susan spend, I don't know, 10-15 minutes, however long she thinks. And have you done a PowerPoint, Sue?
I've got some slides. That's the word. Yes. Some slides to show you. Yeah, as well. So if you want to know a little bit about.
We'll let Susan go centre screen, do a little presentation. Then we'll play another. She's picked a couple of songs for us to play. So we'll play a song, and then we can convene and have a chat and do some questions. So let's make Sue main speaker. And Sue, if you want to start your PowerPoint whenever you're ready, all yours. Oh, if we can all mute ourselves, that'd probably be a good idea. Not you, Susan, obviously.
Can you see that yet, Tony?
I can.
Let me try again.
See you, but not your screen. Just take your time.
Yeah.
You should be able to share because you should be co-host.
Give me a share option, but I don't know that it's in the Zoom.
Okay.
There we go. Share. That's better.
I was going to say you were fine the other time.
Yeah.
There we go.
And beginning. Excellent. Right, know what I'm doing now. So there's Gracie. And hopefully there's Blackpool Tower. And this is the cover. So Gracie Fairshaw and the Mysterious Guest, as Tony said, I wrote it really for sort of children aged 8 to 12, but secretly I wrote it for myself. And very nicely, I've had lots of adults say they enjoy it too as well, because I think it is quite a nostalgic read because it's historical. It's set in 1935, and in particular it's set around the weekend of the switch on of the Blackpool illuminations, or the Blackpool lights as they tend to be known up here. And the cover, I really love the cover, and it was designed by a local artist called Jenny Serwonker, and you can see she's kind of tried to capture kind of the guest houses that you get in Blackpool, and that's where Gracie has moved to. She's 14 years old, and she's moved with Ma and her younger brother George to Blackpool. She's not very keen on being in Blackpool because she's a shy girl, really. In particular, she doesn't like crowds. She gets really nervous around strangers, and that's because strangers sometimes stare at Gracie because she has limb difference. So she was born with her left arm finishes just sort of after her elbow. So this is Blackpool as it was in 1935. And this is kind of the guest house that Gracie would be living in that sort of time. So it's called the Majestic. And she's sort of barely settled in with Ma and her younger brother George when Ma mysteriously vanishes. And Gracie has to try and get Ma safely home as the clock's ticking down to the switch on. And she does that by teaming up with the maid, sort of a teenage maid called Phyllis, and two new Blackpool friends she makes called Tom and Violet. So it's set around the time of the illuminations. Beautiful coloured postcards here that kind of give you an impression of what Blackpool looked like at the time. Extremely popular with the Wakes Weeks, when whole towns would sort of shut down their factories and their mills, and they'd all get on the steam trains and go to the seaside all at the same time, and be able to go to all the things that we know and love about Blackpool still today. So they'd be able to go to the Pleasure Beach, they'd be able to go to the Winter Gardens, the Tower, of course. I always say Blackpool shows off because it's got 3 piers, whereas a lot of places have 1 if they're lucky, and a lot have lost those now. And the top postcard, this shows you the colonnade. So this is up at North Shore, perhaps not as well known, but once we get out of lockdown, if you get to go for a walk, I'd really recommend a walk along North Shore. And if you have read Gracie, you'll know that this is somewhere that Gracie gets to explore during the book. So as I mentioned, Gracie has limb difference. There were a couple of people that inspired me to write about a young girl with a disability. So at the back on the right, that's my mum a few years ago now, and you might recognise me in the kind of, I look like a choir girl in like a velvet dress on the right hand side. And then on the bottom left, that's my great grandfather, and his name is Edward Hill. And I have memories of him when I was sort of this age, of going around to his house and seeing him with my grandma. And in particular, Edward, he had limb difference as well. So he fought in World War I. He was 19 when he signed up. And in one of the battles, he was injured and got shrapnel in his arm. And sadly, they had to amputate his lower left arm. So that was kind of my inspiration for using a character with limb difference. Gracie has congenital limb difference. So that means she was born with it, which is different to my great grandfather. But I wanted to kind of look at how people sometimes react to you if you have a disability. My mum has a disability as well. She has scoliosis and arthritis of the spine, which is a sort of progressive condition, which means she now relies on an electric wheelchair. And I've definitely seen some people's attitude towards my mum change as she's become more disabled. So I definitely wanted to think about physical differences that might cause people to react differently and how we shouldn't. So here's my mum today. This is my mum in the Winter Gardens. So we've been exploring Blackpool together before lockdown a few times as well. So we've been to the Imperial Hotel and had a look around the Winter Gardens. So she's nearly as big a fan of Blackpool as I am. Now this is the town hall in the centre of Blackpool, perhaps not as well known as a building, but absolutely stunning. I've been really fortunate to go on a tour inside this building. And this is actually where they used to do the switch on for the illuminations. So 1935 was only the second time that they had somebody important, a VIP or a celebrity, switch on the lights. Obviously that's something we're quite used to now. It's been going on for a long, long time. We've had Coronation Street stars and Red Rum and sporting people, all kinds of people do that over the years. But in 1935, I found it really interesting and it really inspired my book when I discovered that it was a 15-year-old girl that was asked to switch on the illuminations. So her name was Audrey Mawson, and I did quite a bit of research on Audrey to find out a little bit about her. So here's an original cartoon that was drawn that appeared in the Blackpool Gazette. And one of the very first duties that she had was to meet with the Mayor of Blackpool. And the Mayor, the Alderman, was actually due to switch on the illuminations. But when he met Audrey, he said he was so impressed by her, she was only 15, as I said, that he asked her to take his place. So this is Audrey in this photograph, switching on the illuminations, a slightly different switch on button than we're used to today. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go to a temporary exhibition that was taking place in Leeds, where they had a focus on queens of industry. So there were different queens of industry over a period between sort of the 1920s and the 1970s, sort of focusing on cotton industry, railways, and sort of encouraging young girls to kind of be like a bit like a May Queen and go out and represent these different industries. So Audrey's dad, he was a railway guard, and her mum actually ran a boarding house. So she's just an ordinary girl from Blackpool, and I think she looks amazing in her sort of blue velvet gown and tiara, and she's got the chain of office here and lots of lovely gold tassels. So I was really pleased to be able to see what that looked like in colour in real life, rather than just from a couple of black and white photos that I'd found using Google online. And also I've been taking a lot of trips up to Blackpool to use the local history centre and using the old microfiche machines that they have, so going through sort of the old film versions of the papers back in the 1930s. So the tiara kind of features in the book as well. So this is Blackpool Pleasure Beach. That's me again. Back in the 1980s, we used to do a lot of sort of day trips out. So like perhaps every summer we'd go up to Blackpool, like a lot of children still do today. This is me and my sister on the Ghost Train and on the Alice in Wonderland ride. So I wanted to kind of follow Gracie's footsteps and make sure that I got a really authentic feel for what it was like for her on this adventure. So I tried to visit all the places that Gracie goes to, and luckily in Blackpool, a lot of this fantastic seaside heritage still exists. Sadly, a lot of other seaside resorts have lost, as I said, their piers and their fun fairs and their winter gardens. They've all gone. Even, you know, New Brighton's lost its tower. But Blackpool has held on to an awful lot, and luckily the council are really keen to continue that work today, and the Civic Trust as well. So I went on a fairground ride, which you can see in the top black and white picture. It's called the Hiram Maxim Flying Machine. It's one of the sort of oldest fairground rides that's still in operation today. Originally it was actually on the beach, and then sort of it kind of the beach got made into more of an official fun fair over time. There's the Noah's Ark, which I used to love, but also was terrified of, because you used to have to go up. You remember you used to have to go up those steps, and then it was like stepping stones, and I was always convinced I was going to end up with very wet feet. I don't quite know what I thought would happen, because it used to move from side to side, and I used to be sure I'd fall off it. But yeah, I'm a bit of a coward. But I made sure that this time I was going to do all the things that Gracie did. So I went on the Hiram Maxim flying machines. Originally they were like planes, but now they're a bit more space rockety. I went on the Grand National, which nowadays is a bit of a bumpy ride. And the only one I couldn't go on was the reel, which doesn't exist anymore. So I'm hoping one day the BBC will want to make a TV version of Gracie, and then somebody will have to make a new version of the reel, and I can go on it, because it looks really fun when you see the old video footage. If you go on YouTube, you can see a lot of footage of Blackpool, and it's sort of, well, it's still in its heyday as far as I'm concerned, but it's 1930s heyday. So the other things that I did was I went on the heritage trams, as Gracie does. Obviously, they weren't heritage trams back in the 1930s. These were state-of-the-art, fantastic balloon trams. I've become a bit obsessed with trams. I went round the depot on a fantastic tour, and I went on the trams themselves as well. So there's another picture there of me back in the 80s with my sister from an old holiday film. So yeah, I've really got a sense of the smell of the place and the sound of the place by doing that, which hopefully comes out in the book. And the tram depot is where the Illuminations depot used to be. I also went into the town hall, as I mentioned. So this is a modern day view of the town hall. It's a stunning building. You can see the Queen Victoria statue, lovely stained glass windows, and you might be able to just see the top of a mace there. So this is used by the Mayor of Blackpool, or the Alderman, and it's got precious jewels on it, and apparently it's quite heavy. It takes a lot to kind of carry that around. Gracie goes into the Tower Ballroom. So I was able to go there as well and listen to the Wurlitzer and watch people waltzing. It's fantastic news just now that they're going to be getting lots of money to repair the ceiling. It's got a beautiful ceiling. If you haven't been, once it reopens, I would really recommend you go to the ballroom. It's go and have afternoon tea there. It's wonderful. And one thing I didn't know until I'd finished writing Gracie was that my grandma and granddad on my mum's side, my great-grandfather's on my dad's side, they actually met on the floor, on the dance floor in the ballroom. So that was a lovely thing to find out about my family, to find that I wouldn't be here if my nan and granddad hadn't met in the ballroom, which is a bit freaky, I think. I've also been to Lightworks with my mum as well. We had a nice tour around, and this is where you can see all the different illumination, animated tableaus and lamps, I believe they're known rather than bulbs in the profession, all being sort of fixed and repaired before they go out. Obviously they corrode quite a lot with all the sea air, but it's a fantastic place to go and visit. You can go on a heritage tour there when things are back to normal as well. And I got to touch the switch on button as well, which was a real highlight for me. So this is only a year or two later, I think, than the one that Audrey used. It's got that real sort of Art Deco look to it, this switch on button. And I am secretly, I'm not even secretly, really, really hoping that one day somebody will ask me to switch on the Blackpool lights. So if people want to buy my book and then make that come true, that'd be cool. So yeah, there we go. I'll just shut that.
Excellent. So I'm going to play another song and then we'll have a chat. So you've picked 3 different songs, Sue. You've got either Shiver Me Timbers, Holiday, or Long Lankin.
Should we have Holiday?
We'll have a bit of Holiday.
More Blackpool-y, doesn't it?
Aye, okay. Let's go with a bit of Holiday. Hold on. He says, this is where you have to press the button in the right order.
I'm glad it's not just me, Tony.
No, it's
Monday. We're doing well.
Oh, indeed, yeah.
In fact, I'm doing well if I know what day it is.
Share sound. Share. Here we go. We'll have a minute of this, and then we can all have a chat.
Not getting anything at all, Tony.
Are you not?
No, it started and then it went off.
Okay.
That's it.
Is it working? Yeah.
Little did I know you're my holiday, the place where I escape to forget about how I don't see you enough, to displace the rage, diffuse the urge, to throw it all away and become your slave. I'll take you holiday. Let's go holiday. This is not a dark thought, not from one who needs constant reassurance. You give me the sword and the power to slay who I like and to be who I like. And I will be the one for you holiday. Yes, I will be the one for you holiday.
So that's quite a modern song for someone who likes Wurlitzer organ music. So
Yeah, I'm quite eclectic, I think, in my taste.
why not?
quite-
Why not? Yeah,
Yeah, I quite often like things that have either got sort of interesting music or strong female voice or great lyrics. Lyrics
Yeah.
are really important.
Guys, you can all unmute yourselves now because you can now all join in. So
Excellent.
this is the fun bit for everybody now. We all get to take turns at asking Sue a bit of a question. So obviously we all know her for different reasons, and by asking her something we know, maybe that brings something out that allows someone who's not met the author before to find out a little bit about them, and hopefully we ask questions that they might ask. So in no particular order, we'll let Dawn go first.
Oh, right. Right, thank you for that, putting me on the spot. Well, the question that kind of jumped out at me was, I did, as I read Gracie Fairshaw, I could really visualize it well. And Sue mentioned about, maybe one day seeing it on the BBC. That would, for me, be absolutely brilliant. And just in that thought, who would you have in mind that you would want to play Gracie of all, just one person who you'd like?
Yeah, so it'd have to be a sort of a young actress, but I think it's really important that it's a young actress with limb difference. So I think in the past, quite often, we've been used to actors and actresses portraying disabled people, but I think that's changing now, and that's a good thing. So I'm really hopeful there's a young girl out there that wants to be an actor, that thinks I could do that. That would be my dream. Yeah.
It's a shame that we're so forward, because I did say to Susan that when I read the book, because I lived and worked in London for quite a few years, and I had a young friend, Tina, and she was just the same as Gracie, with the congenital problems, same problems as Gracie, and Tina would have been a brilliant Gracie. But anyway,
Yeah. I always think one of my favourite actresses at the moment is Melissa Johns. So a young Melissa Johns would be brilliant. Yeah.
I think the nice thing with films and TV series that feature children is they can find children from local drama clubs and that sort of thing. That have someone play, the conjurer or Mar or one of the other adults as the badge that, oh wow, it's got so and so in. But I think the beauty of films that involve young people is they become stars by playing the roles that they're given. You go back to Harry Potter and even Coronation Street and things. I'm sure there's someone in Coronation Street who was probably Gail Tilsley's son or daughter, who's now fully grown up and is, a proper part of of the story. But when you were picking the period, did you always want it set in the 30s? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? So
Yeah, so I was quite keen to set it sort of into war, because I always think when you read a lot of history books, you jump from World War I straight to World War II, and the bit in between gets forgotten, or you might get a couple of pages on it. So I was really keen to focus on that sort of early 1930s. It's obviously a very interesting time as well, and lots of parts of Britain were going through a real depression, but Blackpool seemed to have kind of managed to push its way through that. Obviously, Blackpool's had a lot of ups and downs over the years, and obviously during World War II, a lot of soldiers were moved there as well. So it's kind of got a different story sometimes to the other parts of the world. Yeah, that kind of early 1930s. Once I started finding out about the history of Blackpool, it just seemed to really fit. There's so much that happens in the kind of 1935, 1936. Lots of the fairground rides open. So it just seemed to be, it seemed to be the sweet spot, especially when I found out about Audrey as well. I was like, yeah, I've got my date.
And Alban, you being a Blackpool person, when you do get to read the book before you pass it into the grandkids, you'll have to check all the roads that Sue's used.
I will.
Osborne Road is that?
Yeah, so Osborne Road is right next to the Pleasure Beach, and I picked it because I wanted it to be sort of South Shore and near to the fairground for kind of plot reasons. But also, my auntie lives on an Osborne Road, not in Blackpool, so yeah, so it seemed to be fitting.
Yeah, because that's the thing. People will know these things. That's the hard thing when you write a fiction in a real place. Is if you stick to reality, people will go, well, there's no even number 64 on that road. And you may not always go and check things like that. A lot of people who write local history, saga fiction for, people our age type thing.
There's some modern houses on Osborne Road, and I always think, perhaps the Majestic really did exist back there in 1935, and it's been replaced. But it could be any one of those boarding houses on that street.
So, Alban, you might want to ask a general Blackpool type question. Have you got anything in mind?
I was just I'm just rambling really. A few points. I mean, my mother was in the Blackpool. Despite the appearances, I wasn't in Blackpool in 1935, but my mum was, and they took in evacuees during the war. So it's that could be another line of the story. And they always used to say Hitler never bombed Blackpool because he wanted to march his troops up and down the prom.
Yeah, I've heard that story. I mean, it would be great to continue into the future. Probably, Gracie would be a bit older by time war comes around, but I think she and Violet could have some real adventures. I'm sure Violet would want to be a pilot or something like that. That's Gracie's friend who is quite ambitious that way. Gracie goes on to be a newspaper reporter, so yeah, there's definitely scope.
Oh, so you can tell people that book 2 is now written, I hope. Is it?
Oh, is it?
Book 2's written, yeah.
Wow.
So it's set in Christmas 1935, and it's set in the Tower, and it's based on the Tower used to have a professional children's ballet. So I met a couple of ladies actually at their birthday party for the Blackpool Tower who were in that ballet. So I've been able to do a bit more research. A good friend of mine now, Monica, and her friend Mavis told me all about it. So yeah, there's another mystery hopefully for Gracie to solve later in the year, fingers crossed.
Wow.
When's that scheduled? Have you got an idea when it might be out, Susan?
I think we're looking at October, but it's all a bit... So
is it? It might be announced on Friday at the Northern YA Festival.
Maybe, yeah.
just before we let Susan and George ask a question, the other reason we're doing this talk tonight is that you are an author in the north of England. You write for Uclan Publishing, based in Preston at the university. Friday night from 9 o'clock till 10 o'clock, and then 10 o'clock till 11, you're doing 2 sessions with publishing YA MA students. So do you want to just give us a very brief little synopsis of that?
Yeah, so the way that Gracie got published is perhaps a little bit different to some other books. So I submitted it to Uclan Publishing. So they're an independent publisher, as you said, based at the University of Central Lancashire. and they like to give the MA publishing students real hands-on experience of what it's like to put a book together. So they do that by giving them a book. So they have to edit it, they have to fact check it, they have to typeset it, they have to find someone to illustrate the cover, they have to come up with a marketing plan. So they have to do absolutely everything as you would in the real world. And then at the end of that process, the commercial arm of Uclan consider if there's any of those books that they want to go on and publish. And that's what happened with Gracie. It was one of the first books to get picked up and published through that system. I'm really pleased because, as you said, I'm a Northern author with a Northern book, so that was it was really special to get picked up by Uclan. And then I worked with 3 different students on a different book last year, which is a pirate book. So the event on Friday night, as you said, it's in 2 parts. So it's myself and 2 other Uclan authors, so Ruth Estevez and Sam Pope. We're both young adult book authors. And we're discussing, first of all, what it's like to work with students. It's brilliant. I'll give you a little secret. And also a bit about our writing process, which I found really interesting because Ruth works quite similarly to me, but Sam works quite differently. So if you're thinking about writing a book, I definitely recommend you tune in and listen to that on Friday night.
So there's free access to a YouTube channel for all of these presentations, and then there's also over the weekend some live. You can sign in and actually be in the equivalent of this, like a live Zoom chat with you or other authors over the weekend, isn't there?
Yes, it's a mixture of
a wide range of authors.
Yeah, it's a mixture, as you say, Tony, of sort of panel events, workshops. Some of it aimed at sort of more at teenagers or younger children. So the Saturday is the young adult focused day with some fantastic authors on that. Lots of sort of names that people that read that age group will know. And then the Sunday is the sort of Kids Fest. So I'm doing a chat with one of my favourite authors, who is Katherine Woodfine, who writes the Rose and Taylor and the Sinclair mysteries. So if you like historical mysteries, I'm sure you'll have
11 o'clock on Sunday, Sue, is it?
Yeah, it's at 11 till 11:30 on Sunday. So if you go over to Uclan NYA Lit Fest, either through Twitter or YouTube, or they have a website as well. I'm sure you'll find it. If you go onto my website, you'll find the links direct to my events as well. Yeah.
And if there's any teachers out there, because I know some teachers do eventually catch up with this, if you get in touch with either myself or Susan, we can discuss doing Zoom or Teams or any other platform really, class presentations. We did about 5 or 6 before Christmas, and they were going really well, weren't they? So
yeah, we really enjoyed it.
Pick up on teachers if you're out there, because that's the beauty of online. We don't have to get up at 4 in the morning and drive to Leicester to come to your school. You just switch and say, come in at 9:30 and we'll be there, won't we?
Yeah, 4 a.m. is not my favourite time, even though my dad's a milkman.
Oh, really? Yeah. But no, it works really well because the children get to actually be part of what we're doing now. Then they can ask lots of questions and they can email them in. And obviously, as the little advert above my head says, they get a book for £5, which has got to be a bargain. And because Sue lives not far from me, we meet in Asda car park or something. Swap a box of books over, get funny stares at Asda. There's this lady handing over.
It's the modern way, isn't it?
Signing books in the boot of my car, basically. Yeah. You find them at home and we just meet up to swap them. But I think we should let Susan and George ask a question, and then we'll play another song. So, Susan, obviously, you know other Susan from a work situation. So, ask away. Is there something you want to find out?
I suppose I was just picking up on the school, because me and Susan work together with school groups at Norton Priory and families and things. And so I was picking up on you've been out to schools, whether, and I don't know if that's across the country, and whether there's, was it received kind of well right across the country, or was in particular in Blackpool, and Blackpool kind of, have they took you under their wing as their kind of local writer and championing you as kind of writing books about Blackpool?
Yeah, so I think the one of the good things about Blackpool is I think most people have heard of it. Most people know Blackpool Tower or the Blackpool Lights. So I think hopefully it does have wider appeal. Obviously, I'm really keen to kind of build up a readership in the Northwest, and I've worked with Get Blackpool Reading, which is part of the National Literacy Trust, doing lots of kind of detective challenges online during the sort of summer when we were kind of semi in lockdown. And we've mainly been focusing on Northwest schools at the moment, haven't we, Tony? But there's no reason why we can't kind of chat to schools anywhere, and hopefully they'll understand my lovely.
If anyone knows, you know, a local teacher or school, always pass on, you know, my name initially. But if you know the actual author, like you all know Susan, you know, most authors, you know, are quite happy to find a way of engaging with children in schools. I mean, you know, there's different ways of doing it. I mean, sometimes you have to charge, you know, an admin fee or appearance fee if you were physically going to the school, you know, but as long as it's all done the right way around and nicely, it can be done quite easily, really. And I do think it's very important that children are introduced to people like authors, illustrators, poets, you know, musicians as well, for that matter. You know, that, you know, it gives them something that they might want to be. The joke I made at the start about I love reading books, but the idea of sitting there all on my own and making words up and making them stick together, I just couldn't do it. I mean, George, what have you got anything on the reading, writing, or?
Just a couple of questions actually, because you know, obviously the presentation was a lot about Blackpool and the fair and the all the attractions of Blackpool, but I'd just like to kind of get into the mind of Gracie and find out what was her favourite ride in the fun fair.
Well, she goes into the fun house and she really doesn't like that experience because it's really, really crowded. So she'd probably like to perhaps go on the train with Violet that goes around in the Pleasure Beach train. But she's really pushing herself to do things that she doesn't like in the book, especially by the end of it. She has to kind of overcome her fears of crowds and strangers. So that's a real challenge if you're moving to Blackpool, I think, especially on the weekend of the illuminations when it's absolutely heaving with people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the rain as well.
They go on the Grand National, don't they? The boys and the girls split up, and one of the girls is quite into science, isn't she?
She is, Violet.
Violet, she works out the weight of the carriages.
Yeah.
Might have a bearing on which one wins and things, and leaning to the left and the right at the right time. You know, which is brilliant insight from you know, a 14-year-old basically.
Yeah, I've got great hopes for Violet.
Yeah, and George, what was your other little follow-on you've got there, maybe?
Yeah, it was really thinking about, you know, we understand why the 1935 setting, you know, the second sort of light switch on, and the idea of it being between the wars. What made you sort of choose that rather than going even earlier?
Yeah, there is that kind of interest in kind of the Victorian times when Blackpool's really just kind of setting up. And kind of I've read quite a bit about that, but it was just the idea of Audrey 15 years old being asked to switch on the lights that I just thought, oh, that might be the hook for my plot. But yeah, cool. I mean, who knows? Yeah, you could easily, I mean, there's some I can't remember the name of the lady now that writes a lot of kind of books set in Blackpool in different eras. Is it Margaret Thornton? I feel really
bad. There is a name like
I've read quite a few of them and I absolutely love them, and my name's just gone a bit. But she writes about families, sort of proper sagas set in Blackpool where it follows different generations. There's one, a Stick of Blackpool Rock, and then she writes some that later in like the 60s as well. So, I mean, you can never run out of story ideas if you're focused on Blackpool, as far as I'm concerned.
Anyway,
that's true.
We'll have another blast of a song, because when this goes out on the radio, obviously we'll play the whole song there. That they'll cleverly do technology and play the whole song. So let me get the choice back up for you, Sue. So you've either got Shiver Me Timbers by Tom Waits or Long Lankin by the Waymarsh Sisters.
I'll have Long Lankin, because I think Susan McKell might enjoy that.
Okie dokie. So
said my lord to my lady as he mounted his horse, beware of Long Lincoln that lives in the moss, said my lord to my lady as he rode away. Beware of Long Lincoln that lives in the hay. Let the doors be all bolted and the windows all pinned, and leave not a hole for a mouse to creep in. So he kissed his fair lady and he rode away, and he was in fair London before break of day. The doors were all bolted and the windows all pinned, except one little window where Lincoln crept in. Where is the lord of this house, said Lincoln. He's away in fair London, said the false nurse to him. Where's the little heir of this house, said Lincoln. He's asleep in his cradle, said the false nurse to him. Well, prick him.
Wow, that's quite a spooky song, that, Susan.
It is a bit spooky, but I really love it. There's something kind of really Tudorish about
Oh,
it,
yeah,
medieval, and
It's, yeah,
makes me think of Speak Hall and things like that. All
Yeah.
the places I've, like Tatton Park that I've worked in the past.
Used to be a
so
great
that's the
folk club in
Wainwright
Blackpool, didn't there?
sisters. Who's that, Alban?
There used to be a great folk club at the King's Arms in Blackpool, and they used to have all
Yeah.
the I used to go to it every week in the 70s, I think it must have been.
Some fantastic folk music, isn't there? And again, sort of those kind of really old ballads, and the lyrics just really, there's real storytelling in there for me. So it's Martha Wainwright and her sister-in-law.
Oh, so Martha Wainwright. I've heard of Martha
Wainwright.
Wainwright.
Rufus
Yeah.
Wainwright.
Now,
the whole family, isn't it, of
I'm
musicians?
just going to play a very quick clip of this for you, and we want to know who Reg Dixon is, basically. Is it playing?
Again.
Huh?
It's gone off again.
Oh, has it?
It started and went off again.
So, who is Reginald Dixon, or Reg Dixon?
He's one of my heroes.
So he's the man that actually, does it not rise up out of the floor, if I remembered right?
Yeah, so well, again, Blackpool likes to show off, so they've not just got one Wurlitzer, but they've got the Wurlitzer in the Blackpool Tower Ballroom, which Reg Dixon is most associated with, but they've also got one over at the Winter Gardens as well. So why have one of something if you can have several? That's what I think Blackpool always thinks.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's the sort of the keyboardist playing the fantastic, beautiful white Wurlitzer organ. It comes up out of the floor, and it's got such a distinctive sound.
Oh, it's lovely, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely gorgeous sound. Yeah. And that was one of the moments I really remember from doing the research. Like, I see Audrey's gown was a particular moment, but going into the ballroom and hearing that Wurlitzer, it just sends shivers down your spine. There's nothing quite like it. And I've been lucky enough I've not heard, obviously, Reg Dixon's no longer with us. I do have his autograph somewhere from an old postcard. But Phil Kelsall I've heard play, and he's incredible as well. So yeah,
it's like church organists. I mean, they're amazing, aren't they? Because there's more than just the fingers. They've got all the foot stuff to do as well, haven't they? All the
it's incredible. I mean, when I saw Phil
yeah.
Kelsall, he played at such speed and skill that I was just like,
yeah.
But,
I mean, you've got a newspaper background, haven't you? I was saying to your friend Susan, I finally placed you as a young cub reporter, I think the word is. Probably in the late 80s, did you start? Is that about right?
No, not quite as old as that, Tony. It's sort of 96, was it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort of late 96. I think November 96. I started
Yeah.
Ormskirk Advertiser,
And Crosby and
Gem
Formby
Advertiser,
and
McGull Advertiser, and then I went briefly to Southport Visitor for about 2 weeks before I moved into subbing, and then I was subbing Crosby Herald, Formby Times.
yeah, that's where
York
that's where
Times,
Alice
Mersey
met
Mart,
you, because my
20 odd
bookshop
papers
was
in the
there.
end.
Yeah, but no, you showed photos to children in one of your talks of your maiden name, and my little brain starts backtracking, thinking, I do remember that name. Yeah, but
Yeah.
you've used the newspaper theme in the setting of Gracie. Is it nice to bring in something you really know about, like a real sense of accuracy of what would be said and done in a newspaper?
Yeah, I have a real like nostalgia for what it was like. I mean, I was kind of coming in on the tail end of the kind of, again, the golden era of the world of newspapers, as far as I'm concerned. My news editor, Cliff Birchall, again, another of my heroes. He worked all through the 60s, and we used to have a kind of a little cupboard in the advertiser offices where you could go in and look through all the old newspapers on like big files, because it was a full-size paper then, it wasn't tabloid as well. And I used to go back and I used to do the looking, I think it's called Looking Back page, and it was all about.
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of the school pages, news. I think I did one sports story. Sport's not really my thing.
Well, in the book, you've got you use the Blackpool. It's a Gazette in Blackpool, is that right?
It is the Gazette, yeah.
And they've got like a children's club that everyone who visits Blackpool joins. Is that real?
Yeah, it really existed. So yeah, there was a children's club. I've slightly changed the name of it and the name of the lady that ran it, but yeah, that was a real inspiration as well. So
do you remember this, Alban? Were you ever in like the Starshine Club or something like that?
I don't think I was. I'm sure we used to get the Gazette. We certainly used to get the Green on a Saturday, which was the football paper. But
it's brilliant when you look at it, Albert, because in the paper, the children would write in and say, "I bought a pet budgie," and they would write back and they would celebrate the birthdays. And it was just gives you a real sense of a different way of doing things than we do nowadays. But I love that page. It's brilliant. I think Crosby Herald did something similar for a while back in the late 90s.
Well, they did used to involve people properly in the paper, which was why they were good local papers. Do you remember when the Scouts and things, George? It was great to see, what was going on.
I was just going to say, it sounds a little bit like the Facebook of its day.
Mm.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but a little bit slower.
Proper Facebook. Yeah.
I mean,
now, also, you've used one of my favourite characters in your book, because I like taking photos, don't you?
Yeah.
And obviously, I live in Crosby by the beach. It's not as windy as yours, I don't think. But I love seagulls. And you've used the seagull as a character.
I have, yeah, Gully. Yeah.
How did that come about?
I don't know sometimes where the ideas come from. Obviously, you meet a lot of seagulls when you're in Blackpool.
Oh, yeah, Chip. They like chips, don't they? You've got to see when the children treat themselves.
Yeah,
they win some money at the fairground, don't they, or something?
Yeah, there's a couple of birds that feature in the book. There's a very talkative budgie, which is actually based on something I read about in the Gazette. There was an article about this very chatty budgie, and I thought, I've got to use that. So sometimes I've just taken direct from reality. So the weirder something is, the more likely it is to be based on something true. I think when it comes to Blackpool.
The bird's got a problem, hasn't he? He's got a little deformity as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, so he's got a damaged leg, and so obviously that kind of feeds into the storyline.
Yeah. But go on, Alban, yeah?
Does Gracie get any cruelty in the book because of her disability?
Yeah, so some characters don't treat her as nicely as I would want them to. Yeah. Obviously the villain's not very nice.
And there's someone in the fairground, isn't there? There's
some people just don't think before they speak. But hopefully,
I like to think the world's moved on as well.
That changes.
I like to think the world's moved on as well. I mean, there was an article on today about Joe Biden having a stutter and some child being reassured by this. And I remember seeing somebody with a shortened arm taking a major role in a Shakespeare play in the RSC a few years ago.
Yeah.
This is what we need.
Hopefully things are improving. Sadly, you always hear, a couple of negative stories, but I think as long as we know to kind of speak out when we see things that are being said or done that aren't right, I think that's important. Everyone's got a part to play, haven't they?
Yeah.
Especially thinking about what's going on at the moment in the news.
Yeah. Now, other Susan's up in Durham, so you'll have to find someone who's got children at the local primary schools, Sue, and drop them a hint that you know an author who's written an exciting book, because you've read it yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, I've
So
read it.
you know it's always good to recommend something because you know it's good. I think that's the nice thing when you go somewhere to make an introduction and say, because that's what I used to love the most when I went into a school for a parents' evening or summer fair. I'd have a big table of books out, but when they came over and said, I'm 8, I'm 9, I'm 10, being able to pick a book up and go, well, actually, I've read this one and it's really good. So if you can find a school nearby, just prod them over to Sue, and we'll put things together. She does a proper 45-minute presentation, don't you?
A road trip up to Durham.
Yeah. So, Susan, you're obviously writing all the time, or assume you're writing all the time.
Not at the moment. I should be.
No.
I've been doing a lot of editing. So
well, that's the same, isn't it?
Yeah, we've talked about
the
this
other
before.
half of the same equation. So you've mentioned, I think briefly, well, I know you've written other books. Is one of those out this year? Have I remembered rightly? Have you got another book out this year?
So I've written a number of different books, as you said, but I do sometimes stop between and have a break. But yeah, the other book that I mentioned before that I've been working on with the MA publishing students is called Quintana and the Captain's Curse. So I think if people tune into the chat on Sunday with me and Katherine Woodfine, I think there might be a little reveal. I think I've heard a whisper that might be happening on Sunday.
Yeah, and that's out this year, though.
Completely different to the Gracie book, but it's set on Madagascar, so it's featuring pirates this time. Susan McKell will know how much I love pirates.
You say pirates, and the other song you've chosen, weirdly, is, you could say it's got pirates as a possibility, because it's is it playing? Is it playing? Can you hear it? No,
not just now.
No, it's all right. It should be this time, yeah. They do say shiver me timbers, don't they?
Well, it's gone off again. It seems to be when you shut a screen down.
Leaving my family.
Is it playing? Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Stopped.
Oh, it's gone off again. It wasn't that it stopped, Tony.
You need to be on that screen while it's playing, I think.
Yeah.
Tears are salt water, and the moon's full and high. And I know Martin Eden is gonna be proud of me. And many before me who've been called by the sea to be up in the crow's nest and singing my say. Shiver me timbers, I'm a sailing away. The fog's lifting and the sand's shifting and I'm drifting on out. And oh, Captain Ahab ain't got nothing on me. So come on and swallow me, don't follow me, I'll travel along. Blue water's my daughter, and I'm skipping like a stone.
So, I mean, that's more about Moby Dick and Captain Ahab, maybe, but they do say shiver me timbers, pirates, don't they?
And it's Tom Waits.
It's Tom Waits.
I don't need an excuse to play Tom Waits as far as I'm concerned.
We've got the clue in that. I don't know if you could see the album cover, but he's there looking all interesting with a cigarette in his fingers, because you were saying you love his voice, and I joke saying it's all down to smoking.
Yeah, don't smoke.
No, but I think that's what's made his voice get better as he's got older, isn't it? Really, I would imagine George is a fan of Tom Waits. I can see George being a Tom Waits fan.
Yeah.
I've heard a few. Let's put it that way. But I've got, as you know, very broad taste in music. Everything from, when you had the folk song on earlier on, Susan Wainwright, was it?
Yeah.
Martha Wainwright, yeah.
Martha Wainwright. And immediately I was thinking about Maddie Pryor and Steel Eye Span.
Oh yeah, good stuff.
You know, I mean, as I say, I'm all over the place with the music, but then you know that. So
Yeah.
If it's good, it's good.
That's the best thing, isn't it? So I mean, I think obviously we're in a bit of
I was
a
just going to
renaissance.
say.
Go on, mate. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was only going to say, following up on the music theme there, then, and if it was to be turned into a BBC mini-series or something like that, what would you have as your theme music?
Oh, I don't know. Probably some Gracie Fields. I love Gracie Fields as well.
You'd want that nostalgia as part of it, though, wouldn't you?
That's obviously the name Gracie Fairshaw is kind of inspired by Gracie Fields, if you hadn't guessed.
Now, we can't give
not everyone's cup of tea, perhaps, but yeah.
No, but we can't give too much away about any book when we're talking about it for people who haven't read it. But you've got a wonderful bad guy, a protagonist in the story. Are you allowed to tell us anything about him in ahead of people reading it? Do you mind people knowing who the bad guy is? Is that allowed?
He's one of the guests, and I'll say, because it's on the back of the book, he's a con man conjurer.
Okay.
So there's a couple.
Is he any good though? Do you think he's a good magician? Is he good?
I think he probably could have been good if he'd not slipped into bad ways.
Yeah.
But skills, doesn't
it's quite a clever ploy to be able to manipulate things quickly with your hands and be up to no good, isn't it? The old dummy arm and the real arm sneaks out from underneath. The old pocket type of thing.
Has a strong link with magic, and they have the magicians conference there.
Oh, of course,
yeah. So I've been to see a magic show at Blackpool, which was brilliant. I personally like knowing how it's done. I think it's even more clever when you know the skill involved. Can you do any? Have you thought of learning a trick for when you do real school audiences, so you could it might have to be something quite basic, like a card trick, I think.
yeah Even simple ones work though, don't they? I mean, I remember when I was growing up, the church hall around the corner from us, George, don't know who put it on, but there was a magician there one time. They'd sawing a lady in half and all sorts. It's amazing.
The assistants, haven't you? To be an assistant takes a lot of trust.
Yeah. So, I mean, your friend Susan is obviously keen on history as well, yeah?
Yeah.
Which periods would you recommend an author like Susan looked at then? Have you got any tips, from your playing with history? Well, what are people into? What should an author think? Oh, there's a good period. I'm putting you on the spot now, aren't I?
Well, sorry, are you asking this, Susan?
Yeah.
Me, sorry.
So what periods would you drop Susan a hint that are popular from your work, so to speak?
Oh, well, the Victorians were always good, weren't they? And the home front, they were the kind of really popular with this. Well, we did them right through, didn't we? From the medieval all the way through. But
we don't discriminate, do we?
I think the Victorians was a really popular one, wasn't it? They actually thought we were Victorians. They used to think we lived there, didn't they? They used to say,
we used to get, because we play along sometimes at Victorian Christmas parties, and they'd be like, "Do you live in this big house?" And we'd be like, "Yeah."
Which house is this?
Wicked. It's at Norton Priory over in Runcorn. So it was a priory, as you know, and then it was a Georgian mansion house. There's only a bit sort of the undercroft from the medieval period survives, and the Victorian porch on the top. But the children would think the other bits were there when they came inside. Their imagination was just firing on all cylinders. It was great fun.
You worked at Blackpool Zoo for a while as well, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So an opportunity came up to do a summer season there, and I thought, I've got to give that a try. So it was after I'd left the newspaper. I'd been working a few different venues, and then this full-time summer job came up, and I thought, oh yeah. So I got to work with lots of different animals, sort of feeding wolves I used to have to throw them a bag of food, and you didn't always know what was in there. But some days it would be fish, and they would go crazy for that. And other days it would be apples, and they just saunter away really, and weren't happy with you if you threw apples in for the lunch that day. And I used to do a lot of handling of snakes. Which I'd never held a snake before I started working. There was lots of new things that I did when I was at the zoo, and I loved the snakes. I thought I might be a bit uneasy about it, but they were so lovely and they felt amazing. I was more scared of the rabbits. That was the most scary animal that I always say I worked with at the zoo, because they were, I couldn't get hold of the rabbits. I never had rabbits when I was a kid, so I didn't know what I was doing then.
You'd have been rubbish being the conjurer's assistant then, because
I would be no good with the rabbit. I had a bit of a mix up with the ferrets one time as well. So I've been warned not to pick out a particular ferret. And a little boy and his dad said, "Can we see the ferret, please?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I picked up this ferret, and it kind of clamped its teeth into my fingers, and I realised I'd picked up the wrong ferret. And I still did the presentation and put the ferret away.
And then went to get a tetanus job. You'll be all right when the vaccine comes out. You've had your tetanus job.
I've had my tetanus.
You know what you're in
professional. For. But I loved working with the lemurs in particular. So they were very cheeky, the ringtail lemurs. So you'd be trying to do a talk, and then you were supposed to feed them, I think, after you'd done the talk, from what I remember. But they were very impatient. So they'd sit on your head and just be trying to get into the food while you're there with your microphone and your speaker, trying to be professional. But
so by the sound of it, that's a job you would recommend, isn't it? If children are out there, and there's always children who love animals, isn't there? And I think they sometimes want to work in the stables and play with ponies and things. But get in touch with Knowsley or Blackpool Zoo or somewhere, little Chester Zoo, and learn more about exotic animals. Because you're right about snakes. People think they're going to be cold and slimy, but they're quite warm and almost smooth, aren't they? They're not at all like
lovely. I really like them.
Yeah, but so has Dawn got another question? Sorry, Susan, what were you saying?
I was just saying that could be quite a good book as well, couldn't it? Like something to do with the zoo and.
The menagerie in the Blackpool Tower features in the second Gracie book. So
pre-orders will.
Sorry, I was just going to say you've got plenty of characters to choose from the animal kingdom. It's not just the seagull this time.
No, there's a couple of animal characters in the second one. I won't spoil it.
And pre-orders will be available at Matrix. Signed copies and such like that. So Dawn, have you anything else you've ever wanted to ask Sue about being an author?
Not that I can think of, no.
That's okay. No worries. Alban's a teacher as well, so he's
retired.
Retired, yeah. But obviously, Alban loved coming to the shop, getting books to take into school, and would then take the authors in, if we were lucky enough to know them, which was always a treat for teachers to say, well, I know the man who works in the bookshop and he knows the author of this book.
Tony was always very good. I mean, I think Blackpool's got fantastic potential for a whole series of Gracie books. I always think my favourite job ever in my life was working on the North Pier. So I had a summer season. I kept on coming back, about 3 seasons, not on the stage, but on the flies for the Freddie Starr show and in the Mexico bar and places like that. So you could have Gracie. Probably she does. Gracie going to a show and down the piers and things.
There is. There's so much scope. I'm working on a third Gracie book at the moment, and that's inspired by Gracie Field's filming Sing As We Go in Blackpool. I've written about 25,000 words, and it's a bit of a mess at the minute. But once I get the plot sorted and work out who the baddie is by the end, I'll go back and fix it.
Well, this is the thing that the reader, and certainly children, they don't always know how actually hard it is. It isn't just having an idea and it's all mapped out in a straight line ahead of you, is it? Even if you've got a lot of that worked out, it never comes out right first time, does it, as an author?
No, and especially like me, if you don't plot in advance, if you like to go where the characters take you and where your research takes you, it's always a bit of a mystery ride. And then you get to the end and you think, "Ooh, right, now I know what the book's about." So then you can go back and finesse it, hopefully. So, but that's the fun of it. I love the writing and I love the editing as well. So it's all fun, and the research, the research.
So in this Gracie book, the one that's out now, The Mysterious Guest, having gone back over it, you probably wrote it 2 years ago, maybe even longer. Is there anything now when you've reread it that you would have changed? Has that ever happened? Or are you happy with it as it is?
Yeah, I've read in book form. I've read a few chapters in, but I don't want to read it any further on because I'm terrified I'm going to find a plot hole or a mistake or something. So no, it's done. It's finished now. I've had to learn this, Tony, that I can't keep fiddling and tweaking it. And I don't want to be one of those authors going in bookshops with a pencil and crossing out paragraphs and trying to write in the margins, which I can see is very tempting.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to focus on the new books, writing those rather than rewriting Gracie. So I'm happy with it. Yeah, I think it's done.
You're from the Wigan area yourself, aren't you? That's your home background. Yeah. And in the book, you've got Gracie and her family moving from an imagined Wigan called Milltown.
Yeah.
Did you want to change the name, or is there a reason or anything you can share?
So the inspiration for that is Worktown, which is actually based on Bolton. So it was the mass, I can't think of the full name, but mass research project that they did slightly later than 1935, where they were a load of people came up from London to see how Northerners behaved and basically spied on them during their holidays in Blackpool. And there's a fabulous book you can get that gives you all the details about how many people went to the Winter Gardens and things like that. So yeah, that was a bit of an inspiration for why I chose to rename Wigan as Milltown. So
and
my heart
I think
is Wigan.
there's a thing in the book where you've got 70,000 people come to the Blackpool illuminations.
Yeah, so that's from the Gazette from that weekend. So yeah,
that's
it's
amazing,
incredible
isn't
to
it?
think of all those people piling in around the town hall, which is why later on they moved it, I think, to, is it Bonnie Market, and then onto the Comedy Carpet now, because it just keeps bringing in more and more people. And even this year, I think they had the most people attend because it was online.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, it's going to be around hopefully for
I mean, we used to go up every year with the children, and I'm sure, George, you must have done the same.
I think we went actually a couple of years as well.
Yeah, and then you park up and jump on a tram and off you go, and you're in somewhere special, aren't you? You know, there's always places like York, Liverpool, London and Bristol and whatever, but Blackpool, I think, stands out as somewhere totally of its own. It's
nowadays they have the Lightpool Festival as well, which is fantastic, where there's all kinds of different artworks on the prom, which I've been to the last couple of years, and they kind of ride the lights, and they do sort of big promenade with people all lit up, and they've had the big, is it Gaia in the Winter Gardens and in the Tower as well, or the Earth. So they're always doing innovative things with art in particular at the moment in Blackpool, which is really inspiring. So even if you think you kind of know it, it's changing all the time. And again, they've got some more money to invest in the illuminations. So hopefully they're going to be even better as time goes forward. And I'm hoping that they'll continue this idea of running them up till through Christmas to January, when things go back to normal. I think that's a really good idea for the town.
Well, they've had the tower lit up a couple of times, haven't they? Because, I mean, Crosby and Formby South, but we can look out and see Blackpool on the right night at the right time. And they've had it lit up quite a few times recently.
Different colours for different reasons, supporting different charities and campaigns, which is lovely, Yeah,
but it's modelled on the Eiffel Tower.
It's better than the Eiffel Tower, I think you'll find. It's not actually built on cotton bales. If anybody watching thinks it's built on cotton bales, the money may have come from the investment in the cotton mills, but there's no cotton bales under there. But you can go online, you can see pictures of it being constructed, and you can see kind of that beautiful archway that kind of runs into the circus building. I mean, there's not a building like it. Like I say, I think it's better than the Eiffel Tower. And I've been to the Eiffel Tower a few times.
Yeah.
Blackpool's got so much in that tower, and especially when you look back over time with the aquarium that was there, say the menagerie, the rooftop gardens. I would have loved to have seen those. I keep hoping they'll bring them back one day. There was a strange organ that they had downstairs in the aquarium area as well that played really interesting music. An old Victorian organ. I think those were the big plates that move around another type. I mean, it was on repair shop.
And you've got Madame Tussauds along the Blackpool prom. I mean, do you
Yeah,
know
I
when
keep
that
wondering
came
about that
about?
as a possible story.
I was
Yeah,
going
there
to
is
say, when do
long
you know
history.
when it started? Was it around in the 30s?
It was, yeah, earlier than that again. So I think Edwardian times, may even be as early as Victorian times. But yeah, I mean, there's if you go online and look at Blackpool Civic Trust or Blackpool Heritage, based in the library, there's so many great articles and videos that you can get really drawn into and become completely obsessed with Blackpool like me if you want to.
Well, I think it. I mean, Alban obviously obsesses about Blackpool, the football club, but the place as well. If you've got any friends and family in Blackpool, Alban, if you
Yeah,
could
well,
do a family WhatsApp to them,
I've
then
got
you
I've got
could garner a
nieces
few
and
orders,
nephew.
and I'll get the book
Yeah,
signed and free
yeah,
postage. We do free postage,
it's a good
so
idea.
it'll only cost them a fiver. So
Yeah,
we know you'll be getting one for the grandkids, but if
yeah.
you've got a few people back home,
I'll
drop them
tell
a
them.
hint.
Yeah,
Because we
I,
should
I,
do this PR.
I think it's been lovely listening to Susan tonight because the
Oh,
memories
thank
brought
you.
back to me for my childhood in Blackpool when perhaps we didn't
It has for a
appreciate it
lot
as
of
much.
people, Alban. Yeah, a lot of
And
people remember either
we
going
used to go
or
down to the pleasure beach and go on the ride, but more than that, go on the slot machines and the flipper
yeah,
games,
yeah. Again,
tables and
if
things.
you read the book, you'll enjoy.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, you've got a couple of great scenes when they need some money, don't they?
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, right. Recognize
And
it.
one of them's determined that they can beat the system and
Yeah.
win the money on the slot machines.
Yeah.
My brother did, he was uncanny at finding money. My brother would go for a walk to the shops for my mum. She'd give us the exact money for what she sent us for, like loaf and a pint of milk. And we'd be walking along the road and he wouldn't just find pennies, he'd find pounds and things, my brother. He was a magpie for finding money. But when we were on holiday one year, he found a machine that he just worked out which buttons you pressed when it was spinning round. And he must have won it, well, probably about £10 in old money, but it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my mum thought he'd robbed somebody. It was terrible. He got accused of stealing it, but he just worked out as the wheels were spinning, you could press hold and things.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he did it, but he emptied this machine. We went back the next day and it was out of order.
Yeah. Well, if you read Gracie, that's the rocket story is based on a true story. So
All right.
Yeah.
not one that I experienced, but apparently that was the case with this machine. So
Yeah. Anyway, listen, we're going to wrap things up in a minute, but just before we go, I don't know if Dawn and Susan want to, pass on regards to Susan and, thank you both for joining us. So Dawn, anything
Yeah,
you want to finish with for us?
I'd like to say, yeah, it's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed it and listening a little more information on it. And what I do wish is that one day we see that you are going to switch the lights on, because that would just be absolutely fabulous.
Well, I'll have to
One
write a
day.
letter to the mayor of Blackpool, won't
I
I?
was thinking that there's got to be a way, and if you don't ask, you don't get.
No,
Pull
I
some
think you're right,
strings.
Dawn. Yeah, no, if you don't write, they're not, unless you're very lucky and you're constantly in the Blackpool Gazette as, promoting reading in every school in Blackpool, which I'm sure you do. You need someone to nudge them, don't you?
Definitely.
But imagine that, a book signing for 70,000 people at the Blackpool light switch on. Cool, wouldn't it?
We'll have to
J.K.
get a
Rowling
stamp.
can stay down in London or Edinburgh.
Excellent.
And
Thanks, Dawn.
Susan, from working with Susan and keeping in touch, it must be lovely to see what
Yeah,
she's
'cause
done.
we haven't seen each other, have we? Well, I moved up here about a year and a half or something like that ago, and I've been down to see family, but they've been quick visits, so I've not had a chance to see anyone other than family. So it's actually quite nice. We keep in touch, don't we? But it's quite nice.
Yeah.
It's
Nice to see your face properly and talk, isn't it?
Well, when summer comes, and if we are allowed out, you'll have to do a Gracie tour. You'll have to arrange a little walking tour. Get people to all come to Blackpool one Saturday morning or whatever, and you know, we can all wander around the arcade and the fair and
walk around the
Probably
Gracie
take all
Field.
day, couldn't
Yeah,
I?
walk-
Telling everybody all the stories about Blackpool, though. So
yeah. Well, you
I
know,
think
people do
it's sell
ghost
tickets.
talks in York and Liverpool
I've
and
been on the
places,
ghost
don't they?
talk at
Yeah.
ghost tour at Blackpool. It's very good.
Yeah.
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 I think people would buy tickets for that.
Yeah.
So
No,
the book-
I don't see why not. I mean, it just takes a little bit more to get this book and future books well known. I mean, it took Robin Stevens and Catherine a few books before they were
Does, yeah.
well known. And the nice thing about Twitter and Facebook these days is there are a lot of teachers on who do pick up on books like yours, take it into school and get kids reading it and write to the author and say, will you talk to us all? Because a couple of weeks ago you did a session for Holton
I did
Libraries,
with the
didn't you?
libraries, yeah. And I
Um,
have a couple of schools that I'm book pen pals with as well. So if there's any
Yeah.
schools that have got children that want to write in, you know,
Yeah.
we
Well,
can sort that out as well.
Nikki that was organising that, I met up with her briefly on Tuesday to drop off some books that she wanted, but she's gathering up orders for you and some of the other authors. So, there'll be more orders coming in from there. And she was made up with the response that Susan and about 10 authors in all were there.
Yeah, I think there
They
was.
each did
Yeah.
a
Different ages.
video that was shown to as many schools as wanted it in Holden. And then the kids emailed you questions, did they? Did you have a list of emailed questions, or is that still
Yeah,
to
they
come?
can. Yeah, so there's different ways of doing it, isn't there? But yeah,
Yeah.
we've definitely been doing that.
The other
And,
place to try is, the Story Barn, which is part of the Reader in Calderstones Park.
Yeah.
And again, they do, I think, a lot of author work and,
Yeah, no, they
storytelling
do.
stuff.
I actually went there on Saturday to have a wander around the park because I haven't been for a while. But obviously everywhere's locked up at the moment. But they've got a big sign saying the Reader organisation, so
Yeah.
they definitely are worth our while getting in touch with.
Well, I worked in the Story Barn just for a short, as I was a story hunter in the Story Barn just for a short while, and it's a real magical little place. So, and I don't know whether they do invite storytellers in because it's the kind of story hunters tell the story, but I think it'd be quite a nice thing to start doing with local.
Yeah.
In the school holidays, summer holidays, I'm sure they'd be needing people to, do stuff like that. It's easy enough for us to find out. And Alban, as an old, what's the word, Susan, for a Blackpool?
Sandground.
A sandground. And
Yeah.
are you going to buy a Blackpool, stick a rock and a bucket and spade and come back and visit?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah. And I know it when Liverpool did Liverpool Reads, that they all had the same book to read, didn't they?
Yeah.
It would be a great one
it's
for them
really
to read in
good
Blackpool for Blackpool Reads.
Yeah.
All those
No.
parents out there who are self-educating, living in Blackpool, this would be a great book for them for the kids
Yeah, if
to
you're
go.
doing local history,
stuck in
then Gracie would
themselves.
be great for that.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah,
think
and
you
the
might
national
be right
curriculum.
there. We're going to have to do some quick detective work and find out who's head of children's literacy for Blackpool Borough, aren't we? Yeah. Luckily, I'm not doing anything in the morning, so I'll see what I can do. I'll have a dig
You're always
around.
doing something, Tony.
Yeah, no, I'm always trying to do something. Anyway, I'm just going to play another quick bit of a song as I'm learning how to do this. So keep the screen open is what you're saying, George.
That's what we
Yeah.
decided.
Yeah.
And let's see. Playing? Yeah.
Seaside, whenever you stroll along with me, really contemplating what you feel inside. Meanwhile, I ask you to be my Clementine. You say you will if you could, but you can't. I love you madly. Let my imagination run away with you gladly. Brand new angle that we make commendable. Seaside rendezvous. Feel so romantic. Can we do it again? Can we do it again sometime? Quite like fantastic. C'est la vie, madame, monsieur. And at the peak of the season with Mediterranean. This time of year, it's so fashionable.
So I don't know how many of you knew Freddie Mercury did a seaside song. He did one called Brighton Rock as well, actually, Queen, didn't he, George?
He did, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Brighton and Blackpool are playing each other in the FA Cup, Alban.
I know.
So we'll have to just find a way of playing that song and Brighton Rock back to back, and you
It's a
know,
great book, isn't it? Great film.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I've just been listening to Monsieur Quixote, Graham Greene's reworking of Don Quixote. It's on Radio 4. You know, one of their Listen Again things, and it's Bernard Cribbins, and he's
Cool.
brilliant,
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. He plays a priest who's Don Quixote, basically. But he's driving around in a little battered old car that'll only do like 12 miles a day. You know, about as far as a horse could walk in a day, like Rocinante, you know, the you know, in the original book. But it's a brilliant reworking, absolutely. George Formby. Oh, you found it, George.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Susan, can you see this? George, pop that up again. Is it?
Oh, hang on.
gone,
I'll
or-
have to send it to everyone.
Send it to Susan, yeah. Get ready to make a
Okay.
note of this, Susan. And this is the address you need. How did you find that so quickly?
Oh, I googled it at the time, and I was going to say it earlier on, and then I thought actually we'll finish off with it.
Yeah.
So go on then,
Westminster
George.
Street.
Tell us where George Formby's blue plaque is in Wigan.
Well, his blue plaque is in 3 Westminster Street, Wigan, and you can find it on Google, and it actually gives you the map and shows you where it is. But it's close to a pharmacy on my old patch. I used to be a pharmaceutical rep, and which is why I know Blackpool incredibly well. So when you were talking about Osborne Road, I'm going, oh yeah, there was a pharmacy on there. But George Formby's birthplace is just off the A577 on Westminster Street.
Okay, I need to go. and have a look.
UM5 9BH.
Yeah.
So
I did try Westminster Street, but it was the wrong one. It was up in Newtown. So it's in the centre.
Maybe, you know, obviously trying to tell an author how to write a book, could Gracie go back to Wigan and do a mystery back home then?
I might write something about Wigan one day. I've got a few ideas.
You could do it. I mean, obviously you want the books to be as they are, but I think you could do a thing on your website with you could sow little mysteries for kids to find out, things like this. You know, you could do a Gracie's treasure hunt or something, couldn't you? Of all the background stories, because you've got quite a bit of author's notes in the book at the end anyway, haven't you?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the nice thing, to give them more than just the beginning, middle, and end of the story, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, folks, thank you ever so much for joining us. It just makes it so much more fun to have people being part of these talks. And you know, firstly, thank you to George for putting the idea in my head to do something useful. You know, and Monday nights we've had several authors already, and you know, over the next couple of weeks we'll be trying to pick people to do one proper author one a month, and then we'll do little features. You know, you can't always guarantee people are going to be free every week, but keep a lookout for it. If you're friends with Susan on Facebook or whatever, you know, she'll tell you what's coming up. And if you can contact any schools, just drop them a hint that you know someone who's written a brilliant book for, you know, 8 to 12. So, you know, ideally, years 4, 5, and 6 in primary school, really, Sue, isn't it?
Yeah, that's ideal for us, isn't it?
And by doing it online these days, you can do all of them pretty much in one go. It's you know, which is amazing, really. You know, they can tune in and have a class in each box, watching the PowerPoint, asking questions, and as long as the technology holds up, it's a great way of doing it, isn't it? Anyway, listen, I'm going to stop recording now because we're done on the